Why are so many women struggling to find a boyfriend or a husband? And what's with this trend lately of women getting online? They're in tears. They're crying about how hard dating life has been for them lately. Today, we're going to discuss a couple of viral videos of a lot of single women who are coming forward to talk about how hard dating has been for them lately. And this has been coming up a lot more on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or now known as X, Facebook, everywhere, where a lot of women are now feeling more comfortable to come forward and talk about how it feels impossible to not only find a husband, but to find a long-term boyfriend. And so it has sparked a lot of conversations about what's going on in the dating world right now. Are women's standards too high? Are men just not interested in marriage as much anymore? What's really going on? And of course, it opens up the discussion of women wanting too much from men. You know, a lot of people get online, they say, well, that's what happens when you want a 6'5" millionaire who, you know, has a trust fund and has washboard abs. Women's expectations are just too high. So is that true? We're going to discuss that today, but we're going to start with the video of a woman. I don't know why they always film these videos in their car. The car seems to be like the preferred TikTok studio these days. When all these videos come up, the woman is inevitably in her car, I think because the lighting is just so good, all the natural light from different angles. So we're going to watch this video. It's 3 minutes long. I'm going to try to fast forward through a lot of it just because it's, you know, unnecessary to watch the whole thing. So let's take a look.
Quick question. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I am so sick and tired of just everything right now. Everyone is so quick to say, stop doing this, stop thinking like this, stop telling me I'm wrong. I have literally convinced myself at this point, based on everything that everyone's telling me, my therapist, my family, my friends, that I'm just doing everything wrong. I'm healing wrong. I'm thinking wrong. I'm training wrong. I'm doing relationships wrong. Everything I do is wrong. And I'm so sick of it. Stop comparing. It's not even about comparison. Like, I genuinely just want love in my life so badly. It's literally not about anyone else. It's just about me and what I want. And being fucking over the fact that I don't have it. I feel like I have done so much work on myself. I have built a beautiful life for myself. I'm happy with my life where I'm at, my job. I'm successful. I'm independent. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I take such good care of myself. Truly, the only thing I'm missing in my life is someone to enjoy it with. And I'm so sick of waiting. Like, when is it going to be my turn? What more do I have to do to fix myself before I'm just allowed to be happy? Before I'm allowed to meet this universe soulmate person that God supposedly has for me? How much harder do I have to pray and manifest and wait? I feel like I'm being punished for something I didn't do. And I'm just so tired.
Okay. It goes on like that for quite a bit of time. She's, you know, I know it's easy to dunk on women like this because, you know, she's in her car. It's so dramatic. She spends about a minute and a half saying nothing before she finally gets into her point. But I feel bad for her. Maybe motherhood has softened me, but I feel bad for her. I don't like to see women who are upset and sad because they do want to get married and have kids, but they just can't find a man who's willing to do it with them. And yeah, of course, this raises a lot of questions about whether her standards are too high, which, like I said, we'll get into that. But I see a woman in pain, and I don't like to see that because if you guys know by now, I mean, if you're new to my channel, then I'll tell you I'm a big fan of marriage and family. I think that family is the bedrock of any thriving society, and we need to be putting more effort and time and energy into building strong families because the breakdown of the family is the breakdown of society. And as we've seen, fewer marriages and higher divorce rates and more single moms and single dads, we've seen higher rates of everything from crime to poverty to high school dropouts to teenage pregnancies to addiction to corn. There's just a lot of things going on in society that can very very easily be pointed back to the destruction of the family unit. So yeah, I'm a very big fan of marriage and family, especially I think it's good for women to have children. I've said on many previous episodes that I think motherhood makes women, it makes you a better person. Parenthood makes you a better person. But speaking from a woman's perspective, I think becoming a mother would honestly be such a relief to a lot of women, because a lot of modern women in today's society, it's all about me, selfish, me. And the self is such a bottomless pit that if you continuously keep diving deeper into yourself and self-enlightenment and self-care and self-love and wanting to discover yourself, you're going to be more and more unhappy, because we all are naturally fallen human beings. And so the deeper that you fall into yourself, the deeper you're going to be disappointed. And that's why I think motherhood is so wonderful for most women. I'm not saying that every single mother in the world is a good person. Of course, there are moms out there who mess it up. But I think motherhood is so good for most women because it teaches us to be less selfish, teaches us to be more selfless. And that is actually a relief. It's a relief to take a break from all of our selfish desires and these selfish needs that we have. So having said all that, I think it's a very good thing for women and men to get married and to build families together. So I don't like seeing it when young women are wanting a family and wanting marriage and they just can't find it. So yeah, it is easy to dunk on this girl. She talks about having a therapist. She talks about manifesting love, and she just wants love in her life. But I'm going to show you another video, and we'll kind of fast forward through this as well. This is a single woman who says she's been dating for about 7 years, and she's also in tears. And this video went super viral because she talked about going to a comedy show because she's just trying to go out as much as she can to meet people because dating apps are just horrible. Let's just take a look at this, and we'll chat. This video is 6 minutes long, and we're definitely not going to watch all of it, but let's watch the first minute or so, minute or two.
I'm not someone that posts or cries or anything on the internet, so this is a new one for me. I guess I need girls to rally with me and lift me up because I feel so defeated right now. I've been trying to meet someone, just anybody worth my time, for years, and dating apps are so awful. I don't need to explain to you how awful the dating apps are. So I've been trying to meet people in public, and they're still trash when I do randomly meet people in public, but tonight takes the cake. Last week I was I'm part of an app that you can basically get invited to these events, and there was a comedy thing coming up, and I bought a ticket that maybe I'll meet people here. Maybe I'll meet a guy, or just meet people in general that I could become friends with, and then who knows what could happen. And let me just tell you how this went. I show up. It's a limited seating. Get there first. It's it was an open bar, and in my head, I'm a prompt person, so I got there 20 minutes beforehand, and I happened to be the first person there. Okay, kind of weird, but okay. They tell me, since it's an intimate thing, try to sit in the front row because it's going to be hard to get people.
Okay, well, I'll summarize really quick just because she goes on for a while. So she goes to this show and she's put in the front row because with a lot of comedy shows they want to fill everyone in. So she walks in first and they ask her to sit in the front row, and she is assuming that people are going to fill in around her, and she's just going to take a seat and maybe she'll meet some new people that come and sit around her. And look, kudos to her for putting herself out there. This is obviously, I watched a couple of her other videos on her TikTok, and it really seems like she's someone who's going out and she's trying to meet people outside of dating apps, and she's putting herself out there. So she sat in the front row at this comedy show. Long story short, nobody sat in the front row next to her. She was the only person in the front row. Everyone ended up sitting in the second row or back behind her. And then all the comics just sort of, they kind of dunked on her, and they roasted her a little bit, and they ended up giving her this bag full of goodies because they're like, give it up for this girl. What's your name? You're so brave sitting in the front row. And it's a comedy show. And she wasn't necessarily mad at the comics for doing that. She was just really kind of embarrassed. It was just really embarrassing because a lot of couples were there, and she was, just trying to put herself out there, and she ended up being the butt of a joke. And then she had to go home right afterwards because she had this bag full of goodies that she couldn't exactly take out with her to like a bar and have a drink or whatever. And she got home and she was upset and she was crying about it. So then she, uses the story to talk about how it's just been so frustrating. It's been 7 years of being single and there seems like there's no end in sight. And it's very similar to what the last girl was talking about. Her question is, when is it going to happen for me? I've been looking for a man for a long time. I think she said, if I'm not mistaken, you might have to fact check me on this, I think she's 33 years old. So says she's been dating for like 7 years and hasn't really found anyone. And this video blew up and then she ended up doing a follow-up video. And a lot of people realized in her follow-up video that she seems like a very normal, level-headed woman. Like, I don't think there's anything... There just doesn't seem to be any crazy red flags about her. She just really seems like a pretty girl who's putting herself out there who wants to date. And I don't know. I don't know where she lives. I'm assuming she lives in a major city. I don't know where she lives. So these videos are coming out all over the internet. Everyone's talking about it. And the women have a certain perspective, the men have a certain perspective. And I think that we've reached a sort of pinnacle lately when it comes to the conversation about dating and marriage and men and women. There's just a lot of different pockets of the internet right now chiming in. You have the red pill manosphere, you have the radical feminists, you have the more, quote, trad, I use that term very lightly because it doesn't really mean anything anymore, but the conservative trad cons, though every pocket of the internet talks about marriage and dating differently. But we've definitely reached a peak where it's such a popular conversation. And when you see videos like this, everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has some kind of reason as to why these women are single. So why is this happening? Why are so many of these women struggling to find not even a husband, but a long-term boyfriend? First, before we dive into all the reasons, I want to tell you about my Ultimate Fat Loss Bundle, which is on sale now. I've put together a 10-week program that I do with a lot of my clients. And in this program, you get a 10-week fat loss guide. You get a recipe book. You get a 10-minute crash course on nutrition, a 10-minute crash course on sleep, and you get a 10-minute morning mobility video. I've put all this together in a bundle, and it's on a really great sale price right now. A lot of women have had success with it. So if you're someone who wants to lose weight for summer, if you want to look and feel better for summer, maybe you have a vacation coming up or a wedding or a graduation, whatever it is, now's the time to dive in and take control of your health. And this program is something that you're meant to do on your own. So if you're not interested in doing a coaching program right now, if you don't want hands-on help, this bundle is going to be perfect for you because you just get all the assets, you read through it, you do the workouts and eat the food and do whatever you need to do and get the results. So go to the link in the description in the show notes, click on it. And as always, if you guys have any questions about it, let me know. So why is this happening? There are a lot of reasons that we can talk about. I think one of the first things we have to address, which is a very uncomfortable one. So we're going to start with a more uncomfortable reason that this is happening. I think that women today are more successful than ever. They're more professionally successful. They're more financially independent. Women get more college degrees and graduate degrees than men do. There's even some data probably from about 5 to 7 years ago at this point that over 50% of business startups are done by women. There are a lot of resources now for women in the corporate world, in the world of tech. It's just like, it really is, when it comes to building a career, it's the best time in history to be a woman. But however, as women become more successful, the dating pool of acceptable men significantly shrinks. And this is an uncomfortable truth to talk about, but women are hardwired to be attracted to men who are in the same socioeconomic status or higher. And it's usually higher. It's pretty rare that you'll find a woman who is extremely successful and she's gonna, this term is very crass, but for a lack of better terms, she dates down, right? You've probably heard of this term hypergamy. Hypergamy is a very popular term used by the red pill manosphere. And it's the idea that a woman marries someone or engages in a sexual relationship with someone who is of a superior sociological status or superior educational background. And this concept of hypergamy is seen, if you just observe relationships and the dynamic between men and women, Women just naturally do that. Even if they don't articulate, even if they don't know that they're doing that, there's always some kind of hypergamy that women are seeking because we're sort of biologically, physiologically hardwired to do that. Now, men, on the other hand, a woman's professional success generally is really not that important when it comes to finding a wife. Men are not hardwired to find a woman who is more financially successful and more professionally successful than he is. It's just not what men are really looking for. Men want someone who is beautiful and supportive and nurturing and can give them babies and can manage a household. That's kind of what they're wired to desire and to want in a woman. But the inverse is not true. Women really do want somebody, again, even if they can't articulate it or even if they aren't willing to admit it to themselves, they want someone who is more successful than them in some regard, whether it's they have better education or they have a better job or they're better at something than the woman is. So as we are now living in this modern era where women are more successful than ever, you see a lot of these women surpassing men educationally, professionally, financially. So that means that the dating pool available to these women is lower and lower. It's smaller and smaller and smaller. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong or we have to change it. It is what it is. This results in a lower percentage of men that you would consider eligible. Because I would venture to say that both of these women in the video, these are probably great examples. They probably represent a lot of single women living in major cities. They went to a good school. They have a good college education. They might even have a master's or graduate degree. And then they work really good jobs, whether they work in tech or they work whatever, so many women work in marketing and they make a really good salary. They live in a really nice place. They're not going to date a guy who's a plumber. They're not going to date a guy who is like an hourly worker. They want someone who's a high-powered executive. And they want that guy to be interested in marriage, to be good looking, to be fit, to have his stuff together and to not be interested in hookup culture and he only wants to date one woman. That's a very small pool of men. So this is something that has to be talked about. Again, it's not saying that it's a woman's fault for being professionally successful. Nobody's saying that. It's just the truth of the matter is, as we've seen the landscape change so much over the last several decades, you now have women who are more independent and more successful than ever. And that's what the whole point of feminism was, right? That famous Gloria Steinem quote, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle." That's sort of like tongue in cheek. And the whole point was that women don't need men. But now we've arrived to the point several decades later where women, they don't need men. And so they can't find a man. And there's another quote from Gloria Steinem that says, she said, "We are becoming the men that we wanted to marry." And she was 100% right. And you see that playing out today in all of these single women in the TikToks on Instagram and in real life. These women have become the men that they wanted to marry. Successful, their life was put together, they got a 401k, they have a nice house, they're probably even homeowners at this point. They're responsible, they're independent. They became the men that they want to marry. So what does that leave them in terms of the dating pool? And also a point, something to point out is that the men that are available in their dating pool are not really the men who are interested in marriage at a certain age. Like, these are the type of men, these super successful men, whether you can even say they're probably looking for like a millionaire. These guys who are in these socioeconomic brackets, they're not really looking for marriage when they're 30 years old. So like a 33-year-old woman looking for a guy her age in the demographic that she seeks, that guy who's 33 years old, he's not interested in marriage yet, because why would he be? He's a bachelor. He's enjoying devoting himself to his job and his work and to dating around. There's no point for him to settle down. A lot of these guys don't even settle down until they're like 40 years old, because biologically they don't have to. Biologically, they don't really need to settle down. And then when it's time for them to settle down, even if they settle down when they're in their early 40s, who do they go for? They go for women who are like 25. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm just telling you that's the way that it is. So this is something, when you think about the first video I showed, she talked a lot about how she built a beautiful life for herself. Do you remember that? She talked about how I built this amazing life and I just want to share it with somebody, and I'm successful and I'm independent. That's kind of the reason why you're struggling to find somebody, because these women spend their most fertile years. And I know you're probably like, you sound so red pill manosphere right now, but I'm just pointing out some biological truths. I'm not saying I was a young spring chicken when I got married. I was 30 when I got married, which is like still young, but you know, they would say that like 80% of my eggs were already gone. But I'm just saying that most of these women spend their most fertile years focusing exclusively on their career and building a life for themselves. So when you spend a lot of time building a life for yourself and being independent and just creating this world and this environment for yourself, it's going to be even harder to find somebody to build a life with. And that's really the whole point of marriage, right? Is to build a life with somebody. And again, men are not really looking for a woman who is super successful and financially independent. Men are hardwired to find a woman who want to build a life with them and build a family with them. So this whole idea of I built this amazing life for myself, why can't I find love? They don't really realize the irony of it is that spending so many years building that life for yourself and just for yourself results in a very small dating pool. Unfortunately, I don't like to point this out. It's unfortunate. I feel like one of the lucky ones that I got married and, you know, we've got kids and I'm going to be approaching my mid 30s and I feel very secure. I feel very happy. I would feel freaked out if I were my age right now and single. I'd be freaked out. So I feel like one of the lucky ones. So I don't say all this to put these women down or to shame them or to tell them you did it the wrong way. It's just, unfortunately, they are the perfect product of society. This is what culture encouraged women to do from a very young age. That's what I did. I spent my 20s focusing just on school and graduate school, which was so dumb. Like I got a Master of Theological Studies from Harvard. Do you think I'd do anything with that? You know, I mean, they gave me basically a full ride. So it's not like I have like major student debt from graduate school, but I went to graduate school and yeah, I got a degree from Harvard, but in theological studies. And it was like the most woke program ever. It was very much like in the social sciences. And I remember that one of the first classes I took was called Race Ethics in the U.S. Prison System. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't go to school, but like that was a waste of time. And I think a lot of these women who are getting these liberal arts degrees and they're wasting a lot of time on these stupid jobs, like you're wasting your time. If you really want a family, you got to start looking earlier than that. You got to start looking earlier than when you're 30 years old. So that's one of the reasons why so many of these women are struggling, because they are just really successful. And unfortunately, being too successful as a woman makes it even harder to find a man who is willing to settle down with you and get married. You guys probably know Elijah Schaffer. He had this viral clip where he was on a podcast. It might have been Fresh and Fit and Fresh. I forgot the name. I think it's Fresh and Fit. And he was talking about how this is kind of a funny metaphor. He said, you know, when you're a mom and your kid brings a cup of like sticks and dirt and stuff to you, they're like, mommy, I made you food. You play along with them. You're like, oh, honey, that's so nice. Thank you so much, baby. Thank you. He says that's the same way that men feel when a woman brings their career to him. And they're like, look at my career. And people thought it was really offensive and insulting that he would make that comparison. But I thought it was kind of funny because it does kind of get to the heart of the matter of that men don't really care what your career is, ladies. They don't want you to be a high school dropout who can't read or write, but you know, they want you to be educated. They want you to be smart and intelligent. They want you to be able to raise their kids and teach their kids. But your professional success, like how much money you make at your job and how much you've climbed the corporate ladder, those are not really major priorities for men when they're looking for a wife. And if you're a man listening, I know most of my audience is female, which is great because we talk about women's issues. But if there are any men listening, am I wrong? I mean, I would honestly love to hear your perspective, because everything that I've heard from men so far is that it's just not really that important. So a second thing that we have to really ask ourselves is, are women's standards too high? I'm going to show you a video now of another girl on TikTok in her car, and she's talking about dating and how frustrating it's been because she just can't find someone that she's interested in. So let's take a look.
With the way my dating life is going right now, I feel like I'm going to be single for a long time. Like a long time. I literally just cannot stand. I cannot stand these vanilla ass men. You're boring. You don't intrigue me. And at this point, I'm like losing faith in all men. I just feel like they all want one thing. And if that's what you want, I'm the wrong bitch. Go somewhere else. I cannot tell another man what I like to do on my free time. I can't do it. And I don't give my attention to anybody. And when I'm finally like, oh, like he's cute, like let me talk to him. You're boring! You're boring! You suck. And I feel like from past experiences, I have the tendency to pick the shitty ones. So like, I'm just gonna stay away. I'm done. I'm logging off. No more for Bella right now. And yeah, maybe I do get a little bit jealous when I see couples out in public. I'm like, damn, that looks nice. Haven't had that in a long time. When is it my turn? When is it my turn? At the end of the day, it's not my plan. So we're just chilling.
You're boring, men. Vanilla ass men. That's what she says. Vanilla ass men. Men are too boring. So are their standards too high? And it's, for me, this question is not necessarily a yes or a no, because I think that it's important to have high standards for a husband, because you do not want to marry the wrong guy. That's like even worse than being single, is marrying the wrong person and, God forbid, getting divorced, or even worse than that, having kids and then getting divorced. No, you should have high enough standards. But to me, her standard is like, you're just too boring. It's not that the guy is immoral or has terrible habits that are going to affect their marriage, or that he doesn't share the same values as her. For her, it's just that they're boring, they're vanilla. And this is where I see how successful Hollywood has been in convincing women from a young age, even down to the Disney movies that we watched when we were kids, that you need a white knight in shining armor who's going to sweep you off of your feet and answer your every emotional need and challenge you in every way intellectually, and just adore you and treat you like a princess, and he's going to be your prince. He's going to be your Prince Charming. I think that narrative is pretty toxic. I'm not saying that you should marry a man that treats you poorly, obviously, but this whole idea that you are a beautiful princess, okay, yeah, you are a beautiful princess, ladies, you are. But you get what I'm saying. The idea that the man should be this incredible knight in shining armor who is just so interesting and perfect and well-read and well-traveled. What's wrong with marrying a nice, boring guy? As long as he treats you well and you share the same values and you're willing to build a life together, build a family together. Women get so caught up in how boring a guy can be. And if you're going to have these kinds of standards, it's going to be really, really hard for you to find a husband. So are their standards too high? In a way, yes. Again, you should look for someone who shares your values and your beliefs and treats you well. But being mad because a guy is too boring and because he asks you what you like to do on your free time, you might be writing off a lot of guys who would be compatible with you. I personally don't believe in the concept of one soulmate. I don't. I think that there are a lot of people that you can be compatible with, and that marriage is about choosing every single day to lay down your life for that person, to sacrifice for that person, and to build a life with that person. That's what marriage is really about. Because yeah, you could feel like this is your soulmate, but that feeling's going to fade after 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You have to make the choice every day to build a marriage and a family with somebody. And I think there's more than one person out there that you can be compatible with. So the idea of waiting for that one perfect knight in shining armor and the soulmate, I don't think it's helpful to him, and I don't think it's productive. I think there are a lot of guys out there who would be willing to treat you well and to provide for you, even if they're not millionaires or billionaires. and they're willing to start a family with you and support you in having children. And women write them off because what? They're bald, because they have a receding hairline, because they're not tall enough, because they're boring, they don't read enough books. You're setting yourself up for failure. You are. And a lot of the guys who were responding to these tweets online, they were like, actually see if I can find one, because there was one guy who said, listen, I make $57,000 a year. I'm da-da-da-da-da. He was like, she would never even look twice at me, you know, because I'm not like rich enough or interesting enough for her, but I would give her a really good life. Let's see if I can find it. And I thought that was really interesting because I see this with a lot of men. Like, they get turned down from women because they don't live up to these very nitpicky lists or needs. Okay, so this guy says, it's a 5'7" dude who's a manager at the Amazon warehouse making $55K annual that would give her the world, but she probably thinks she can do better. That's an issue with a lot of y'all. Okay, so he wasn't talking about himself, but this is the tweet I was thinking of. He's right. There are a lot of guys who, they're not tall enough. They don't have the right educational degree, but they make a decent salary and they're going to be good to you and they're going to treat you well and they're going to give you children and give you a nice home. And what? He's just not interesting enough for you because he hasn't because he can't fly you to Ibiza. And I do think this is one of the issues with a lot of these women, because they just want their Prince Charming who's so interesting and who's so rich and who can have a yacht for them one day. And they're missing out on a lot of everyday guys who could give them the world. And these women are really shooting themselves in the foot because they're not allowing themselves to see that a lot of these men are very eligible. Very eligible. So another thing, number 3, we can talk about men a little bit more now. Why are so many of these women having trouble finding husbands? Because there are men out there who really just are not as interested in marriage as they were before. So this is definitely a factor. Doesn't all come down to just women or all come down to just men. It's a multifactorial thing. And another factor is that you're just seeing fewer and fewer men who are interested in long-term relationships or marriages, especially in their 20s and in their 30s. Because they've been bred to believe that now is the time to mess around and be a bachelor and hook up with women and travel and, kind of be degenerate too. And so a lot of these men just aren't as interested in marriage anymore. And of course that plays a role. So yeah, the dating pool is even smaller now. So you have these women, late 20s, early 30s, who want a relationship, but the guys who are considered their quote equals are the ones who are not really interested in them because they just want to have fun. Why would they want to settle down with a woman and devote themselves to her? And in terms of marriage, why would they want to lay down their life for her? Because that's the whole foundation of marriage, right? From a Christian perspective, is that the husband lays down his life for his wife the same way that Christ did for his church. And in turn, the wife submits to the husband. But why would these guys want to do that when they feel like they have everything they want in their single life and they're sort of stuck in this Peter Pan syndrome? When I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years, that's where I met my husband. All of the guys that I knew in the tech world, like they all had Peter Pan syndrome. Oh my gosh, all of them. They were just perpetually stuck in this, I don't even want to say youthfulness, because it's not that they're just youthful. They're just really like stunted, emotionally stunted. And I actually think a little bit of a sidebar. I think that the tech world lends itself so that men stay infantilized. Because if you think about these major tech companies, and it's not only just Google and Twitter and Facebook and whatever, just pretty much any tech company in San Francisco, they provide like almost every meal for the employees at work. They definitely provide lunch. A lot of times they'll provide breakfast or even dinner. They have places where you can bring your laundry. So the guys just bring in a bag of laundry, and while they're working, they get their laundry done. There are always like parties and events held for them. They never have to show any responsibility of packing their lunch or like I said, doing their own laundry, because everything is just sorted out for them. And that's the tech world, is that the whole idea was that they would function as like a university campus. You know, you go to college and everything is on campus there. That's how a lot of these tech companies wanted to be, and they still are. And that has furthered this sort of infantilization of these young men, because why? They have no responsibility to anybody, not even to themselves. So the idea that they would step up to the plate of marriage and devote themselves to a wife and kids, that's nowhere in the cards for them in the near future. No way. They're going to wait till they're 40 or 45 to do that, even if they even do want to do that. So, and then of course the rise of hookup culture. Hookup culture has been beneficial to men and detrimental to women, because guys realize that they've got a big enough pool of women who are willing to sleep with them no matter what. Why would they settle down? So that's when you also end up with a lot of these women. They want to get married. They want to date long term. And a lot of these guys just aren't interested. So I do think that it comes down to both men and women, what's happening on both sides. It's not just one or the other. And then there's also the red pill manosphere, which has been raising a lot of issues lately about how marriage is not worth it for men. They claim that it's only worth it for women. It's not something that is beneficial for men. So why would they want to get married? Because the legal system is just in favor of the women. And so you have all of these influences on men, and of course they don't really want to get married. So what's the solution? There are probably many other factors, a lot of other factors about why women aren't really finding a long-term boyfriend or husband, but those are the main ones that stand out to me. So what do we do about it? What's the solution? Do women lower their standards? Do women just try to get married younger? I don't necessarily think that women have to lower their standards. I do think though that women need to be more open to different types of men. And I think that it would be beneficial if women took a break from movies and TV and maybe even social media, where there are all of these messages that they're bombarded with every day about how they need to find the perfect man who's a Prince Charming. When the reality is there's a lot of good, decent men out there who may not have a six-pack and who may not have a full head of hair. I'm not saying marry someone fat. No, he needs to be healthy. It's in some way. He needs to be somewhat in shape. But a lot of women are missing out on these men who are considered everyday average middle class. Another thing is I do think that women should be more open to marriage at a younger age. I'm not saying that everybody should get married when they're 20, because that's actually some of the rhetoric that's coming from the right now, is that they say get married as young as possible and have as many kids as possible. I think it's more important to marry the right person than it is to get married as young as possible. But I do think that women need to be more open to marriage at a younger age. I think that if you're 22 years old and if you know that distant somewhere down the line you want to get married, be open to dating seriously now. Don't wait until you're 29 to start dating seriously for a husband. Protect your heart, protect your sexuality, and be serious about dating now, early on in your early 20s. That's going to make it much easier for you to weed out which guys are worth your time, which guys are marriage material, which means it's going to be easier to find a husband. And if you find a husband when you're 25, great. But it may take a little bit longer. But the earlier you start, the earlier you allow yourself to be open to marriage, the more likely you are that you're going to find somebody before you turn 33, 35 years old. And you're like, oh my gosh, I got to freeze my eggs. I'm not saying you should choose the wrong guy when you're young. Okay, and I think I did an entire episode on this where I kind of broke down this piece of advice from the right, which is get married as young as possible, have as many kids as possible. And notice it's always the guys on the right saying this who are millionaires and they have a whole team of nannies for their kids. It's easy for them to say, but I think it's much more important for us to choose the right person. And when you're young, ladies, learn how to vet the right guys, learn how to know what to look for when you're dating. And value yourself in the dating marketplace, because if you devalue yourself, then men aren't going to value you in the marketplace of dating. So I do think that women should be more open to marriage at a younger age. I don't know what other solutions there are. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think the solutions are? I think that women should also look for men in different places. Get off the dating apps. Don't expect to find your husband in a bar. You have to really look for the spaces where men are are naturally more inclined to marriage. Of course, church communities, find a good Orthodox church in your area. You can, I've heard a lot of success. I was one of them. I heard a lot of success of women finding a husband at a martial arts gym. I went to learn jujitsu, and that's where I found my husband. A friend of mine is now engaged to a guy that she met at jujitsu, because I told her, I go to jujitsu. Because a lot of these guys who were doing martial arts, even guys who were just into fitness, they're naturally more right leaning. They're much more disciplined. They're fit. They're healthy. They're not going to be the guys who are going to go out partying, because partying and being really fit and fighting just don't go hand in hand. So look for men in different places than online and at the bars. You can find men at volunteering events. You can find men, you can find men on Twitter. I see so many couples that have met on Twitter in the space of the conservative right. I don't know. I wish I had all the answers. I do. I don't like to see women struggle like this. I wish that there were more women who were successful in finding marriages when they want to get married. So I wish you all the best if you're single. Don't lose hope. Don't despair. There's someone out there for you. You just have to be strategic about it and find the right guy. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I think I'm going to sign off for now, because kids are probably going to wake up soon. And I don't know what else I have for you guys. If there are any topics that you want to hear in the future, let me know. Leave a comment. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Turn on the post notifications. If you like this episode, share it with somebody. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.